Hi, and welcome to another episode of Lost in Space with Montana Kennedy. This week I'm going to be talking about the new work that they've done with the turrets, and I'm titling this one Survival Mode's About to Get Bad. Part of this is because of this little guy. When you first show up in Space Engineers, you've got this little basic fighter, you go off and you think, I'm great, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to blow something up. And it works really well, and it has worked really well for those of us playing a lot of survival mode. You get your stuff set up, you go out, you grab a transport, or you grab a mine layer, or just something else out there. You grab it and you latch on, you start cutting it up after you turn off any of the bombs or anything like that. And if you really feel like it, you can go around and shoot it. And so, what you can do now is you can. I just Everybody's kind of been freaking out about the fact that the ship missiles all work. I mean, the ship Gatling guns actually work now. And here's a couple of bad shots of me going around. What I decided to do was I decided to go ahead and take it and slap on a whole bunch of missiles and slap on a decoy, and this is what happens. And part of that being it's a little light fighter, it's set up with nothing to do. It's just basically there. Light armor, light weaponry, and so it's like that was just one little blast from the front side trying to take out the decoy that I had. So I decided to go ahead and try something a little bit different. And so I went back to the base. I set up another version of the fighter, and if you had a quick eye right there at the very beginning in one of the first scenes, you would have seen me fly right past it. But what I did here is I set up a huge array of missiles heading off to the side with the idea that I would pass this mine layer on the left side, and I would just launch into it, launch into it, launch into it. But part of the problem is it's not easy to shoot that. No, I'm sorry, it's a transport. It's not easy to shoot that off there. I may have hit that with just like one salvo out of how many? We're allowed 4 salvos. Once this would actually go real, and like when you're in survival instead of creative, I'm in creative right now just to figure out if this stuff will work in concept. And so you sit there and you set all of those missiles up, you shoot over and over and over again, salvo after salvo, and whether you hit something or not, that's about what happens. And so starter fire is not effective, and there's not really a whole lot you can do. And so what I did, and that's the version of the fighter that I took into play. And you see with all those missiles, it's just not easy to aim from the front. Yeah, I could set up a whole wall of those missiles pointing from to the front, but then you're still going to have some problems. And when those machine guns hit your light armor on that little ship, and they just start to chew you up. So what I did is I went to this. It's one of the little ships, and I set this up with heavy armor, have a whole bunch of forward-firing missiles, and so I started going after 4 different ships to see what would happen. And part of the problem is to get all of the missiles launched that you want to get launched, you end up having to get in a little bit close, and it lasted a whole lot longer. You saw me get through that one, and you're going to see some other issues as I come back in on this. But one of the things you start to find out real quick is as you're going through there, even when you do start doing some good damage to the ships you're shooting at, you really do need to start looking in, and you see stuff like that happen. And I think this is one of those things we'll have to figure out as we start to progress. Yeah, you can see all the damage that did, because what I had done is I had set up the decoy right behind my turret, so it just fired right through the turret. Partially, the location of that was because I'm guessing that when any of this stuff actually goes live and in survival mode, when those ships have an AI, they will shoot center of mass, is what my guess is. And so I was placing the decoy close to center of mass, but even so, as much as that trashed that ship, I came in to take a look and see what this mining hauler looked like. And we've all seen the mining haulers up close. If you haven't, I would definitely recommend you go try it when you can. But you can see how much my missiles just chewed up the back end of that ship. And so in this particular case, I had to make a few different runs with another ship to come through and shoot things. And you can even see that gun, it still has power. There's still a gun that's up on a turret that's still active, and so it can still defend itself. There's another gun top and bottom. I mean, it's able to go through, and there was nothing I was able to do. So as you start to look at that, you kind of have to go to that next step. Part of it, I even tried taking that same little ship that I just had, threw extra armor across the front of it, and you can see that armor taking shots. You can see that armor just deforming as it's taking shots from the minigun. And here I am going back in on another run. And as you come in on these different runs, it's essentially the same thing. You're flying straight on in. It's shooting. You're shooting at it. It's shooting back at you. You're just trying to get as much damage. But then even again with the small ships, once you go into survival mode, you've only got 4 rounds coming out of the rocket launcher instead of having unlimited like I have right now in creative. And you get to the point where in order to try to survive, you've got to get pinpoint accuracy, and going for pinpoint accuracy leads you to get too close, and so you need to end up pulling out. And when you get to pulling out, if you don't have enough engine thrust, you're not going to get it. So this is my next step. I ended up calling this one the Raider, for Commerce Raider kind of thing. And as soon as I get it figured out, I will be throwing this up on Steam under Montana Kennedy. But you can see there what I've got. This is all heavy armor. I've got the big bulge in the front is up over where my missile launchers are. The big bulge in the center section is over the large reactor. If I were to do this again, I would have a number of small reactors salted throughout the place. And so I've got a battery of missile launchers, the large ship missile launchers out the front. And here in a second, you'll see what the laser pointers look like. And so the reason why I did that in that different setup is basically just because I want to carve in a nice big punchy hole in there, focused in around where I'm aiming. And I know that I need to be able to survive hits. I know that I need to be able to deal out damage. I need to be able to launch a lot of rounds. And I know that in some cases I need to take out a whole chunk of a ship just to get the minigun. Because if you leave any of the miniguns left, they will launch into you. And so here's one of my first missions out with it. And some of these that I'm going to be showing you with this, I ended up, for one reason or another, I didn't want to have to show you all of the move in on the target. So I would end up pausing the shot, and then I wouldn't restart it until after the fact. You'll see a couple of these in here. But once you get into about 1,000 meter range is when you can start shooting. And you see they locked in on me, and they're going to start shooting, and I'm just launching shot after shot after shot. Okay, and that was the military mine layer. And you're going to see, everybody who's been around a military mine layer, you know where the booby traps are, and you know what it will do if you try to go in reverse. It'll blow that mine that's right behind the neck between the drive wing and the storage wing. And so what I end up doing is, as you could probably guess, rockets up against a mine-laying ship isn't exactly the best thing. If you punch through the armor, you're going to hit the wrong thing. And this is one of the things I learned is really, really effective. Come in as if you're going to be strafing, but then you can yaw or pitch as you need to in order to keep your front pointed at the enemy. And because behind those missiles, I've got about 2 or 3 layers of heavy armor. I've got a lot of angled armor, which I haven't checked actually to see if the angled armor is really as effective in this world as it should be. I'm guessing it is, just to see if there's if it will reflect any of the rounds coming in at you, if it'll just, I should say, deflect them. If you get any ricochets or anything like that. But watch what I'm doing, because I'm coming past it. I'll sit there and I just keep my front towards the enemy. I'm trying to lead it. And you can see what I've already done there. that mine layer is in two pieces. Back end's floating along. The front end is just sitting there, just still spewing rounds at me. And as you sit and watch, one of the other things you might notice is on my velocity, if you haven't kind of figured it out already, one of the fastest ways to speed up means to slow down, is just throw on your dampers. What occurred here is on one of my last little missions up against that ship, for one reason or another, I shut off the camera. And as I was going through on a strafing run, I didn't realize it was just partially not being used to flying a big ship. I'm used to flying the smaller ones. I ended up bouncing right into a corner of the mine layer, and it ended up caving in that top bulge in my ship, knocked out my main reactor. And so that was what led me. And there's the mine layer, still has a good gun sitting on top of it. But that was one of the things that makes me want to, if I'm going to change this, I will put a number of reactors around it instead of just the one, simply because that's your Achilles heel. If it goes, you're done. Military transport, same thing. And as I'm doing this, I'm learning a little bit more. Let me start mining transport. That one, if you aren't familiar with it, it's got a neck in between two arms. I just split the two arms. But it's got reactors all over the place. It's got guns all over the place. There's still a couple of guns that are still active on that ship, as I find out here in a second. You can see the crosshairs going over it. And you can see a couple of the guns actually on both of those last couple of missions. A couple of the guns got knocked out. Yep, and so what you end up having to do is after you knock out part of the ship, essentially you're going back and forth strafing just to knock out the guns. That's the main thing. You don't have to defeat the ship. You have to defeat the guns. Once you knock the guns out of the ship, it's about useless out there. So you can get some really good stuff done. But the big thing is just lots of armor, and keep the armor pointed towards the bad guys, and then you can get your armor fixed out. There's the laser targeters on me. I'm inside the 800 meters. They're shooting at me. And so I'm sitting there trying to, there we go, knocked out one. But there's still another gun that's up high that I've got to knock out. And this is where you start shooting skeet, is you're just trying to intersect all your rockets with, like, you firing them, guessing where that target's going to be. And you can see here as we come up close, that ship's starting to fall into pieces. They've already sent one of the wings of that transport someplace. But it's just kind of one of those things. I'm thinking as I read the forums, as I listen to what some of the folks in different postings have been saying, I love the stuff they've been talking about, but when most of the things talking about turrets are just people sitting around just kind of showing them destroy buildings that they've made or destroy ships that they've made, they have to remember that at some point we're going to be going into a survival mode where we are going to be going in to try to capture these ships in order to get materials. And if, granted, I could sit there and, if I was really good with my small ship, latch on. I could probably latch onto that thing. But here, I'm not used to being in a big ship. I let that thing smack me in the front of my ship. And now it's spinning off. But I could have captured that. And I could have used a lot of the conveyors and some of the other materials in there. Here's a shot of the rest of that hauler. And it's just trashed. And so right now, the way it's set up, you can go onto the ship, you can grab it, do whatever you want, and you've got a full ship. In the future, we're going to go in and we're going to get parts and pieces of ships. And I know that everybody's trying to figure out what's the best way to destroy your buddies and friends, and they're making rail guns, and they're trying to go through and figure out how they can best use these to defend themselves. I think a lot of people aren't looking yet enough at what it's going to be like to attack somebody who's got stuff like this. Here's a mining hauler does something similar. I start shooting in on them. And I want to try some of the different tactics that I've seen suggested in the wikis. Different people have suggested tactics like come up behind it, come up in front of it, come up from the top, things like that, just because some certain ships don't have any particular defenses of one way or another in one particular area. And there's just going to be, I think we're going to be finding different ways to come in and attack stuff. You see, I just laid one whole shot right down the side on that mine layer, opened up the back end of it, and some of those mines in there, you'll see here in a second, it just completely tore open the back end of it. But it's just one of those things we have to watch about what happens and how we're going to be getting into this game when certain things start going active. Everybody's excited about stuff. Yeah, there's still a laser. It's just, there's a lot of stuff out there, and I think I just really wanted to kind of take a look and see what's going on. And I think this will be really what's going to be interesting to see for people developing new ship designs instead of the big dreadnoughts, so they can fight the daylights out of everybody. And they've got ideas of having clans and fleets and things like that with multiple people firing from different positions. But I think in a lot of cases it's going to be one person on one ship firing a whole bunch of rockets, firing a whole bunch of miniguns. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how this all ends up turning out. I hope this is giving you some food for thought, and I hope that you'll get a chance to go test out some of these things like this yourself. If you want to check it out yourself, build a ship, throw a decoy somewhere in the middle of it, and go out and see what you want to do. And you can start testing some of these things out. Good luck with it, and have a good time. Other than that, thanks for listening. If you like this video, please go ahead and check on like, thumb it up. If you want to see some more stuff for me, I've got channels on Space Engineers, World of Tanks, and Minecraft. Go ahead and listen to those, and please subscribe. And I will leave you with this parting shot of watching how even as badly beat up as that ship is, you're stuck in space having to salvage.